What's your favorite rough lie?
I don't like the rough.
I know. You're so rarely here right around the green.
Yeah.
Well,
you're right. I mean, the rough, it's just, you can have so many different lies in the rough. I mean, I think, the less grass, the better. I mean, we all know that the more grass you have, the less control you have around, with especially the club coming into the ball. So, but yeah, I mean, you got to practice bad lies too. I mean, that's the one thing. When I was young, I never practiced bad lies. I would always give myself good lies, and then you hit good shots, and you're like, wow, this is great.
Yeah.
But once, you realize you're not going to have great lies all the time. So, stop putting them in holes, or even when the grass is, coming this way, when you're swinging into it, I think it's very difficult. And then even when it's really high, and it feels like it's sitting on a tee, it might look great, but then you realize you have an inch of air underneath. It's very difficult.
Yeah. Graham McDowell told me, though, when he watched you practice, you never, wasted time hitting silly shots. Because, why would you ever do that?
Well, I think, practicing silly shots or something also helps you with your imagination, your feel. I think sometimes I got a little bit robotic with my practice, just doing the same thing over. You watch some guys and some gals on the tour, they experiment a lot. And that's what I think a lot of amateurs should do, is try different things. What happens if I open up the club face? What happens if I put the ball back? Experiment, because, I mean, you can know all the technique in the world, but if you don't try what works for you, what happens when your hands are behind, hands in front, and get a feel for it? You need to have a little bit of free-flowing practice sometimes and not be so strict and so organized. Okay, so I hit that shot right there with what you have in your hand. And that's a reasonable lie, right? Yeah, I mean, I think this is a very good lie. There's not too much going on here. I'm not going to do anything complicated. I'm going to do not really a bump and run, but I'm going to open up my stance a little bit, but I can still have my hands in front and make sure the ball just kind of lands on the edge of the green, using a lot of my shoulders. Boom. Okay, now, I'm going to hand you this club. Okay. And I'm going to give you, essentially, I mean, is that... That's very good, yeah. So okay. Now you gave me a club with less loft. So, yep. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself some loft. Okay. Because I would want to have some loft. As you can see, these greens are pretty fast. So I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to put the ball position more forward in the stance. So literally, I'm creating a 60-degree from what you just gave me, a 54. A little bit more of a bunker setup, a little wider stance, ball position in front. And you swing through like that. So. Okay, now if I got in here and I've got what you got. Well, here's the thing about shots like this. Mm-hmm. They're I'm a competent player, but these shots are unnerving. They are, and I feel like my hands are okay. Mm-hmm. And I watched you, and there was absolutely, you had. Give me your assessment of what I just did. Well, first of all, I think that was a good shot. Okay, that's not bad, right? Yeah, no, exactly. But I think the key, when you said it's a little nerve-wracking, well, you obviously play a lot, but some people that don't play, they don't use their shoulders. You're using your shoulders nicely. What I mean by that, your shoulders are moving through the shot. A lot of people do shoulders back and stop because they feel like, oh, I'm using my shoulders, this thing is going to fly. But you have a lofted club, which means it's going to fly up and then softly. So I think you're doing really well. I mean, I can see you have more of a narrow stance than I do. I do. Because I'm sure that's more for feel for you. It is. Which there's nothing wrong with it. You're a little bit more handsy than I am. Now, I want you to get back in with this club, and I want you to hit the degree of difficulty. You've given yourself a reasonable line. I want you to hit the higher shot. So it's not the practical shot necessarily. Yeah. But, a reasonable lie is, again, ball position to me. When I move the ball position more forward in my stance, what happens is, the club comes in, the hands are a little behind. You can see the club face is in front, which makes the ball go up. Yep. So, basic rule is people that have a lot of forehand press or hand press like this, the club never goes in front, so you get this low rolling shot, which is great when you have a lot of green to work with. But if you have some kind of element, if you have something, then make sure your hands literally just go behind, so when you swing through, the club you can see is in front of the shaft. So, but then to do that, you need to make sure that your shoulders are working. It's high, maybe a little hard, but at least it's high. What I see a lot of people do, they come down here and they're so afraid and they scoop, and we see them top it and it just keeps flying.